Okay, here's my vintage X9E, and I've applied my template that I use on all my radios, and let's just go through how it works on this radio.
Check flight mode.
So this template allows me to add the functions I need to fly a glider or a plane on any given day. And so it always fires up and says check flight mode. And what that means is that it starts up in a default mode, which is a very basic mode. So if we have a look at the monitor, go fly means that I have aileron control, I have elevator control, I have rudder control, but I have no brakes, no flaps, because that functionality is disabled. So it allows me to go and fly a very basic ship, or maybe my son who's learning can fly and not have any functions that he doesn't need. So first, when flying a DLG, for example, we might want to have brakes. So to do that, we always put the stick in the top right-hand corner, and we push our momentary switch, which happens to be in the top left corner.
Flaps up, air brake on.
And that has activated the flaps.
Flaps down. Flaps up.
So it's basically a switch. Now for a DLG, we want to add flight modes. So this time we put the stick in the top left corner.
Flight mode on. Flight mode thermal.
And it has activated our flight modes. And my switch here has 3 flight modes. Middle switch for cruise.
Flight mode cruise. Flight mode
up,
speed. Flight mode cruise.
Middle.
Flight mode thermal.
Down. So thermal mode is controlled between float.
Flight mode float.
And thermal.
Flight mode thermal. Flight mode float.
So flight mode float gives us a little bit of camber, and if I flick it into thermal,
flight mode thermal,
it picks up the same setting as the float mode. However, I can add more camber with the S1.
Minus 14. Minus 3.
So in that way you can control the camber while you're in thermal mode, starting at the float mode camber point. The next thing with DLG is we need a launch mode. So again, we put the stick this time in the bottom right hand corner.
DLG mode. Launch. Zoom. 0 volts.
So if we had a Vario, that volts call would have been an altitude call. But the way it works is we momentary switch to go into rotate mode. It will put us into launch 1. Launch 1 is like cruise mode with an up elevator to rotate the glider skyward.
Launch. Launch.
So with the button pushed, we're in that mode. We spin around, we let the glider go. We let go of the button.
Zoom.
Goes into launch 2, which is zoom mode, which is my speed mode, and that just allows it to go ballistic and vertical. And then we're at the top, we can push over.
Zoom. 0 volts.
And when we push over at the top, our flight modes are cancelled, and the radio calls the altitude if we had a Vario. Now, if we happen to be flying slope, we might not want these same functions. So firstly, I can use this switch here, which is kind of a reset, set up as a reset switch, and I will cancel all the modes. 5 seconds.
Reset. Check flight mode.
It goes back into check flight mode. So this same glider, a DLG, I want a slope, but on the slope, I don't necessarily need flight modes. So, however, I might want rates. So to do that, I can first set the brakes. I might want brakes on the slope.
Flaps up, air brake on. Flaps down. Flaps up.
We have flaps, and if we go to the bottom left-hand corner,
Slope soarer mode, middle rates.
we go to the bottom. We have a switch, a 3-position switch here.
high rates, middle rates, low rates, middle rates.
So we have a sloping DLG with rates and brakes, but no flight modes. So this DLG could be an F5K, and I might want the motor functionality. So first of all, I can exit all of the functions again. 5 seconds.
Reset. Check flight mode.
We're back in check flight mode. So for our F5K, we want brakes.
Flaps up, air brake on.
And we want flight modes.
Flight mode on. Flight mode thermal.
But this time we don't want a launch mode, we want a motor mode. So in this case I bring the stick to the full bottom.
Motor armed.
And now we have a motor armed. And what happens now is instead of using my momentary switch as my launch switch, I can use it as my motor switch. And when I push it, it will slowly bring the motor up to full power. And when I let go, it will slowly bring the power down in this way. So now you can see we're at full power. And now we're off, motor's off. Motor on, motor off. Now, one thing we do have on S2 in all of these modes is Expo.
Expo 0. Expo 58. Expo 33. Expo.
So that's kind of cool. I built this template because I just wanted to be able to take the template and apply the settings to set up the servos and the surfaces and endpoints and such. But then I can just turn on the function I want on the day, depending on how I want to fly.